a little bit more level. Okay, so you need this paper. If you're like, Mr. Tunde, what paper, what are you talking about? It's in your pack. So there's a pretend ruler. Well, it's not pretend, it is a ruler, but it's in with this paper. So in your supply kit, get your sketch, and you'll need some type of colorful something and a pencil. So get these things. And it could be anything as well. So for those of you that are like, oh, I don't have a marker, a crayon, a color pencil, a pen, as long as it's different from a pencil color. Okay, well, while a few more people are grabbing those, we'll do the first part. This first part is very, very simple. So get your pencil, you put your marker to the side. What you'll notice on your sketch is that there's a million squares. There's a million. There's too many than what we need. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna just have you, we're gonna make basically put the parameters. Because again, I wasn't sure if we were gonna be back in school yet or what was gonna happen. So we're gonna do this together. This outer ledge of squares, this outer perimeter, kind of like a little frame. What we're gonna do is we're gonna color that. And you don't have to be like hardcore coloring, but you just wanna know, because this is gonna be the outer edge of our quilt. So we don't have to think about this part for design. So this part isn't gonna be design, it's just gonna be the outer edge. So go ahead and with your pencil, just color that in. You don't have to like super color it, but just as long as you know. Just that one level of boxes all around your paper, all around the square. Okay, let's do this. So if you remember from yesterday, we had 5 rows of boxes, a 5 by 5. And here we're gonna do the same thing, but it wasn't until I had already had you guys pick these up that I realized it's a little distracting. Like I didn't hide. So like you see here in the middle, this is the center. This is why I kind of highlighted these. I didn't do that for all of the other ones. So that's what we're gonna do right now. So what you're gonna think about is every 4 boxes is one group. Okay, so I'm just gonna highlight this one and you guys will see what I mean. So this is one piece of fabric. This is what we're gonna pretend in our brains. This is one piece of fabric. And I put the 4 boxes because I wasn't sure who was gonna wanna do what. Like let's say Chris was like, I'm gonna do some triangles. I wanted you guys to be able to like draw inside instead of having like teeny tiny squares to draw in. So like if you wanted to do like middle or do rectangles or triangles and do like that diagonal slice, I wanted to give you space to draw in. That's why I did like 4 little boxes makes up one fabric piece. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna change this so that way we highlight each one. So basically you'll have 5 rows. So what I do is the top one, where the pencil and that first line are, I'm just gonna use my marker. I'm just gonna highlight the whole thing. Okay, so I drew my, line across. I'm gonna follow this one and go straight across as well. And for those of you that know where this is going, you could probably jump ahead, but I'm gonna go easy peasy lemon squeezy. Because all I'm highlighting is my pattern. And I'll show you an example of like what this is gonna turn into in a second. But I just want to know, okay, here's one fabric square. Here's my next one. Here's my next one. Because this is going to help us when we start sewing to know, especially because you're going to change different like squares. Like let's say this is one square, this is my other square. Okay, well, I need to know which one comes next. So that's why we have the physical copy. So here's one. Now I'm gonna look at these next 4 squares and I'm gonna draw that line straight down. Here's these next 4 squares. I'm gonna draw this line straight down. And then the next 4, straight down. Basically, we're just highlighting to make this paper look like our grid from yesterday that was on the Google slide. Now, for those of you that kind of know where this is headed, we're going to basically do this, what we did right now, for this whole page. I'm just going to go row by row so it doesn't get overwhelming. So I did this top row. Okay, so here's my 5 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to do the next row. Same thing. I'm just going to do this side line. Again, I'm just going down 2 little boxes. I'm going to go on this side as well, 2 little boxes. And then I'm going to go across, just like we did before, all the way down. So I did that first little rectangle, and I'm just going to follow these lines back down. So you can do this a quicker way. No worries. So now let me show you my sketch, because again, I'm always like a little bit ahead of you guys. And I want to explain something. So we're working on this today, but this was supposed to be due tomorrow. I'm actually going to have it due on Tuesday, and I'll explain why. I'll explain why in a second. I was looking over the activity yesterday to see who finished. There were some people that you're like almost done, and I want to give you some time today to work on it, or tomorrow if you needed to, because I don't want you to lose out on those points. And so when I was looking at the sketches, or like what we did yesterday, you guys are doing pretty good. Like your patterns look really, really good. I don't want you to think that having just square patterns, like square shapes, doesn't make your pattern unique. It does. Now, if you want to add triangles in, you can. It's really what you want to do. But with that being said, I also want you to be realistic. Meaning, so here's my pattern. This is what I'm going to do on my quilt, because I really, really wanted to try asymmetrical. I've already started sewing. So what you can notice, so let's look at this one square. This one square here in the corner, I have 2 triangles and 2 triangles and 2 triangles and 2. All of my squares are made up of triangles. I don't have one area that's just a square of fabric. So what that looks like as I've started sewing, well, look, it's starting to look like this, right? Because we have to sew the fabric together, because we have to turn it back into a square. So my top row is this one. It looks cool. I really like it. Does it take a lot of time? Yes. Is it frustrating? Not really. Actually, what really is frustrating is this green fabric that I have. So I really, really like this fabric. I was like, ooh, this is gonna be the best fabric in the world. It is the hardest to sew. And I'll show you my little piece again. Because like as I'm sewing, it starts to like move, like it won't stay still. And so if you look at my little row, like this is all like pretty even, and then it starts to get like wonky as I get further down. I'm not too worried about that. Like I'm gonna fix it because this is just way too weird. But for those of you that want to do triangles, because again, look, here's like one square for me. It's composed of 2 triangles of fabric that I have to then sew back together. And then I take that new square and I sew it to another square of triangles. You can do that. Like, hey, I'm never going to tell you not to challenge yourself. But also just know, if you already hated sewing the pillow, you are not going to enjoy sewing triangles. What we're going to do is you're going to pick your pattern, which one you want to work on. That's going to be your project. And you're going to start designing this. So kind of like what I did. I'm going to do 2, actually. I'm going to do this one that I've already started working on, and I'm going to do another quilt of just squares. But if you notice, what I kind of did was I told myself what's going in where. Because when we start sewing, we're going to have to tell ourselves, okay, I need to sew the green this way and my polka dot this way. Now, I drew my polka dot, but you don't have to. Let's say in each square, you're going to put red square, blue square, blue square, blue square, red square. And then you just need to write it out for yourself. So that's what this sketch is going to be, because this we're going to use as we build our rows. Kind of like how I was highlighting, that's what we're going to do. We're going to build our rows and then slowly start attaching them together as we sew. And this outer, this is like this we're going to do at the very end. So don't worry about the frame part. This we're going to do together too. So you might need to go back and decide, you know what? So like, for instance, this one, actually, these two are pretty much just full square fabrics, and I have a few areas that are triangles. So that won't, make me want to jump off a ledge or anything. I really like my pattern number 3. I really like it, guys, but I know it's gonna take time. Sewing requires patience. It's not hard, and I'll show you how to do it. So for those of you that are like, oh man, this looks too hard, it's not. You just take it square by square. Like, it's just like how we did the pillow. We took it square by square. But this pattern requires me to cut fabric in half to make little bars of fabric and to cut fabric diagonal. I don't know if I want that challenge. I don't know if I want that challenge. I might do something a little bit more simple. I kind of like the idea, but maybe I won't do the bars. Maybe I'll just do a few of the triangles and I'll keep a full thing of fabric here. I don't know. That's what we're figuring out right now. That's what you're going to do with your sketch. What do you want? And you can always change your mind. I don't want you to feel like you can't change your mind. You can change your mind. You just have to catch it now, where you're like, okay, I had this idea, but I think I'm gonna do something different. Change your mind now while we sketch before you start cutting your fabric. Or when you cut your fabric, make sure you have extra. Like, let's say you thought, okay, I'm gonna do some diagonal pieces here, and then next week when we start cutting the fabric, you're like, you know what, I'm gonna keep this as a full square. Okay, that's fine. You should have more fabric than you need, but you have to cut the fabric wisely. So this is kind of our game plan. Like, you're gonna have this with you as we start working on our quilt. So fill this in. It's not due yet. You're gonna have time right now. You're gonna have time tomorrow, and you're gonna have time on Tuesday. So I want you to think about it. I want you to look at the sketches, look at what we messed around with yesterday. If you didn't finish this, go ahead and finish it, because I want you to play around before we get started. But see, maybe you liked it, but you're like, ooh. Also, think about your fabric. There's some really, really cool fabric. Like, I really, really like this fabric. And I didn't realize until I started sewing that it's going to be a challenge. And you might run into that. Have a game plan in your mind. Like, maybe you start sewing a fabric and it's just too difficult, it's just not working, can you swap it out? You know, because I gave you 6. So maybe you swap it out with another piece of fabric. You know, I don't know. It's all about learning while we work. So what you're gonna need, you're gonna need your sketch paper, the fabric you're going to be using, some scissors, a pencil, and tape or glue. So for those of you that are new, you might need tape. For those of you that are returning, I gave you some glue. I don't know if you still have it. Oh, where's my tape? There we go. Tape or glue, whichever you have. So this next part, I'm going to show you. If you're not done sketching, that's okay. That's okay. Don't worry. You can, we'll continue once I show you this stuff. And no, I haven't taken attendance yet. So at the bottom of our sketch, it says fabric samples. I want you to actually cut out samples of your fabric. So that way you know which ones you're using. Like obviously you pick them out, but it's gonna help us that they're like, we know which one's going where. And when I say samples, I mean samples. So like here's my fabric. So like a little tiny piece, like just cut off like a little piece from your fabric. It doesn't have to be very big. And you're just gonna put them on the spaces. It doesn't matter which one's which. Now, again, it depends on you. Like for this example that I'm going to be working on with you guys, like during class, I'm using my 3, right? That's the requirement. You have to have at least 3. For my other ones I'm working on outside of class, I'm actually using 5 of my fabrics. It's up to you. If you're using 4, if you're using 5, you decide how many you're using. So I'm just gonna tape this down. If you have glue, glue it. If you have tape, use that. And one thing too, don't forget to label which example of balance are you gonna use? So mine is radial because if I like cut it down the middle, both sides are identical. If I cut it across, both sides are identical. If I go diagonal, it all looks the same. Symmetric, only one side. Asymmetrical, it's a free-for-all. Free-for-all. So don't forget to label that as well. So actually, a few good questions in the chat. Let me address those questions. Really, really good questions. The numbers, yeah, that doesn't help, right? The numbers don't really matter. Like I put these to just have you like have a place to put your fabric swatches. If you have fabric that's all the same color, definitely. I would even write on your fabric, like give this like I would write on here number 1, number 2, number 3, and then drop those in here. So that way you remember. So yeah, the numbers on the sketch paper don't really matter. I just put those there so that way you would know where to like put your pieces. But if that helps to have them numbered, definitely. Like if you would just be writing all blue, yeah, you use the numbers. Whichever makes it easier for you. Because again, this is going to be your map when we get started. Next question was talking about turning in the sketch today. You're actually not going to turn in the sketch today. Or when we get back together, like when I call you guys all back together at 8:15, 8:20, we're going to do one more thing to the sketch. And if you're done, then you can turn it in. But I changed the due date till Tuesday. So for those of you that are like, I just started writing on my sketch, it's okay. The due date for this is Tuesday, because what I'll want to see is like when you turn it in, all of this labeled, however you want to label it. What kind of balance you're going to use, your fabric squares, and then we're also going to put some info by the squares as well. That's what we're going to do in about 15 minutes. However you want to label. Like if all of your fabric is a color, let's say you're all like all of them are kind of like a green. And also it just depends too. Like when I labeled this one, I just put leaf, you know. And then instead of putting, because I had 2 blues for my other one, so I labeled this one light and the other one navy. So it's up to you how you label. Okay, so what we're going to do, because this is going to help us with figuring out what to cut, how much to cut. What you're going to do is you're going to take one of your samples and you're going to count how many squares do you need? Like how many of my yellow will I have to cut out? For me, this is a little bit tricky because I'm going to be using diagonals. So like this one and this one will probably be the same piece. So for instance, let me get my example. So if I cut 1 square, you know, that's 1 diagonal, 2 diagonal. So for my yellow, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So for me, for my yellow, I need 7 squares. So by your fabric, you're just going to write that number. Because this is going to help, because for instance, this is a lot of fabric. Like this is a really, really big piece of fabric. And I just need 7 squares. That's good, because if I should mess up, if something should happen while I'm sewing and it doesn't come out right, or I cut it wrong, something weird, I still have more fabric left over. So what you're going to do for each one, you're going to write how many do you need? How many do you have to cut out? Also, you don't want to cut out a million pieces of fabric. If you just have to cut out 3, just cut out 3. Once you write down how many you need, how many squares you need of each color, then this sketch is done. Then you're done, you can turn it in. And to double check, if you want to double check that you counted right, when you add up your numbers, it should come out to 25. Basically, to turn in this sketch, you know, I'm going to want to see your design and your labeling, the fabric, how many of each fabric do you need, and then I want to see which one you're planning to do. Is it a radial design, symmetrical, asymmetrical? And then you'll just take a photo of this and upload it on class. But again, this isn't due until Tuesday. So if you're like, Miss Artunde, I'm just starting to put in my sketch, that's okay. Don't worry. Nope, I went through that. Before I take attendance, what I was telling everyone earlier is on Tuesday, you're gonna need some cardboard. So the best cardboard is this thin one, like a tissue box cardboard, or a cereal box. Basically, what we're going to make on Tuesday, where am I? Oh, I was like, where are my pieces? Our little templates. This is gonna help us to cut our fabric the right size. So you could use paper as well. Like let's say you're like, Mr. Cheney, I don't have any cardboard. That's okay. You know, you'll use paper, but templates are nice because you can like put them on the fabric and then, you know, like draw around it. Whereas paper is a little bit, you just have to be a little bit more gentle.